And as I promised before, now you have the opportunity not only to ask questions, but express your points of view and your observations.
Marks, so feel free. So the floor is open. Martin.
Yep, thank you. It's just a little clarification. So it's to Estonia, to Lithuania, and to Finland. So in your councils, how many are you? How long do you sit there? Who elects you? And can you be re-elected?
In Estonian Fiscal Council, there are 6 members. We are appointed by the supervisory board of the central bank. So we are not staff members of the central bank. Well, here comes a nuance. 2 of our council members are from the central bank, so they are, but other 4 are not employees of the central bank. We are appointed for 5 years. I think we can be re-elected. At least I haven't checked it yet. There are 3 more years to go, but maybe I need to start campaigning, but I think there is no restriction. And the central bank board is appointed then by the parliament. So in that sense, we are kind of indirectly appointed by the parliament.
We are 7 people in the department, 5 of which are civil servants and 2 are working on contracts. So we cannot be elected, and there is no term.
Okay, thanks. We have 3 economists, and then there is also some support from the auditors. But together it makes like 4 working years totally, and then there is a head of this function, but he is not an economist and doesn't really have fiscal policy background. So I don't know whether he should be calculated in this question, but there is still one. And we are for life, so okay, thanks.
Yeah, maybe I just will add that in addition to those 6 independent council members, we can use the time and knowledge of 2 central bank staff members for analysis or searching for some background materials or things like that. So they are partly then assigned to fiscal council, but most of the time they do their central bank economist work.
Thank you.
All these others from other countries, from other states within your councils, and if they are, are they able to be the citizens of the 3rd, let's say, outside European Union, for example, from Canada or from the United States of America?
I don't think there are any citizenship restrictions in our fiscal council. I have to admit that I don't know that law that specifically. I know that we have been very generous by offering one of our council members to be also in the council of the Latvian Fiscal Council, but I don't think we have asked for a favor from other countries to borrow somebody from them. So I'm not sure, but I don't think there is any restriction.
This year we have started to create an advisory panel to our department, and at the moment we have positive responses from 2 members who will be the part of our advisory panels, and both of them are not from Lithuania. One expert is from Hungary, and the second expert, he was a council member of Slovak Budget Responsibility Council, Michal Horvat. At the moment he is a lecturer in York University, so he will be also one of the members of our advisory panel.
No, there is no restrictions, but as they are officials, they have to have good comment in Finnish, so that's an obstacle for quite a few people.
So in Latvia, the Fiscal Discipline Council, there are such restrictions regarding in Latvia regarding the citizenship. There was a story whether we can afford inviting American experts to Latvia. According to our law, these people should have a good knowledge of European fiscal situation and system. And here, when proposing candidates for the membership of the Fiscal Discipline Council, the Parliament should consider whether these people have some links, probably with the political parties, so they shouldn't have such links. But regarding citizenship, there is no strict restriction, as far as I know. And if I'm not mistaken, the qualification criteria was related to the knowledge on the European fiscal system and situation. Thank you. Another question. We do not have any state national secret, and we do not have to have access to national secret. Therefore, we do not have such restriction which would depend on the citizenship. I'm apologizing for confiscating the microphone, but in the Parliament we discussed this issue, and there were argumented reasons why should there be a possibility to include in the Fiscal Discipline Council citizens from countries who are not part of the European Union. And why? Because I also participated in this discussion. I wanted to invite an American specialist, a specialist who works with the same issues in Washington, D.C., but this attempt failed. Thank you. Are there any more questions? I have a question to the members of the council. You're looking, I'm Jānis Ellsbergs, representing the Association of Retired People of Latvia, and you are following strictly the budgetary deficit in Latvia. But when we look at the actual implementation rates and discharge rates, the budgetary deficit was 1%, but according to the budget discharge, the deficit is 1.4. So the question is, where could we find your analysis? Thank you for your question. It is a good question. According to the law, we evaluate the budget discharge indicators 11 months after the end of the respective financial year. Where is this problem? The problem is in the condition that only in October the Statistical Office of Latvia gives their final evaluation and conclusion on how big the nominal deficit has been in this particular year. After that, our work with Ministry of Finance continues to establish what was the structural deficit pursuant to the requirements of the fiscal discipline law. So what has been the cyclical component, and in what economical stage the Latvia was at that moment. And based on that, we publish our opinion on this issue, and we provide our comment on the results of 2014. And we will continue our work for 2015 at the end of this year. So we perform such analysis, and even before the end of the year, we try to follow these trends, and we try to establish what consequences will have such discharge of the budget, taking into account the requirements of the fiscal discipline law. Here I would like to mention one thing, that the fiscal discipline law doesn't require us to intervene the processes within a year. So if we assume that the budgetary deficit could be various during the year, although we warn, of course, the government if we feel that the budgetary discharge doesn't follow the schedule planned. But pursuant to the fiscal discipline law, we have to evaluate whether or not the correctional mechanisms should be applied pursuant to the fiscal discipline law. So, of course, we provide irregularity reports if there are some irregularities, or if some procedure norms are not complied with, or if the expenditure more than allowed are approved within a year. But pursuant to the fiscal discipline law, in case a deviation from our balance goal accrues over several years, then in the future we have to plan in the third year, that is within the next medium-term budgetary framework, that we will reduce the allowed deficit, or that we increase the budgetary deficit for this non-fulfillment, failure to fulfill the previous budget requirements. So this system is more strict than this correctional mechanism, which is has been adopted in line with the Stability and Growth Pact. So this requirement is more strict than that, and it provides for no deviations from it. And in our current situation, there have been no such structural deficits or deviations from these structural deficits, due to which corrections should be made. But we will update our calculations in June and also at the end of the year, and we will analyze the situation once more.
With respect to looking at exposed performance, since those corrections normally even after the end of the budget cycle.
Well, we do give our comments and assessments usually in July, when we have the so-called annual report of the state finances that is produced. Then we give comments. But if some revisions are made 2-3 years in the past, and then it comes out that what 2 years ago was supposed to be a balanced budget, now after GDP and other revisions ends up to be minus 0.2% something, then we usually haven't said anything. But we have in our forward-looking comments used those as examples of why the state should have the buffer for the future, because past years have shown that the end result may not be as nice as you think at the end of the current year.
We also try to analyze the most recent vintage of actual data. For example, if the deficit deviates from the planned, we try to analyze the factors which influence that. But of course, if revision occurs for previous years, we do not comment on that.
Thanks. We don't comment on the data revisions, but we have to remember that in small countries like Finland and Latvia, also the data revisions can be really big, and the things can change drastically afterwards. So looking at the deficit and in a sense that deficit to GDP, the ratio, it can vary a lot in history, in vintage, when you compare to bigger countries, that states like Germany or France, where the data revisions are not so big. that has to be kept in mind, and this is always a problem when talking about the current state of economy. Thanks.
Thank you. Andžs.
The European Commission, of course, is in the process of setting up a European Fiscal Council, and it also promotes exchanges not only between the capitals and Brussels, but also between the countries and experiences. And I think today's discussion is a good opportunity for, at least the northern fiscal councils and different guises to exchange experience and learn from each other. Do you have a plan to have a bit more structured sort of cooperation? I know that somebody's traveling to Vilnius tomorrow. There's going to be something, and also last year there was an exchange. Wouldn't you think it would be useful also to sort of institutionalize maybe a bit this exchange of experience? And I think all the fiscal councils can only gain from this, since essentially the perspective of Northern European countries is, despite the sizes and maybe a bit of a difference in economic cycle, is similar. I mean, there's a lot of similarities you can draw from each other. Do you think there is value added to these type of exchanges in future? And do you think the Commission should be more active in promoting this? Thanks.
Maybe I will start with the answer. Last year it was first time when 3 Baltic fiscal councils had a joint meeting, actually here in Riga. This week we will have a meeting in Vilnius, and we will have a colleague from Finland joining us as well. So let's see whether next year we will have a meeting where also other Nordic countries will come. But in general, there is this exchange of views through OECD, which is holding at least once a year, every spring, a meeting. Was just now in April in Paris, where those views are exchanged. Then there is a separate initiative of EU fiscal councils, which is so far informal, more or less gathering, but has a little bit of a structure already. There is a gentleman from Spain whose name I can't now pop into my head, who is kind of a agreed chair of that informal setting, and who is the counterparty also to European Commission in the discussions and debates about European Fiscal Council or other issues. And this informal network has also, like OECD, established its own kind of community website where countries can provide their best practices, where other countries can learn. So I think these networks already exist. Whether European Commission can add something to that one, I'm not ready to answer to that. I think so far, at least looking from Estonian Fiscal Council point of view, the opportunities through OECD and EU fiscal councils have been sufficient for us.
I as well share the same view as Andžs expressed just. For us, this opportunity to discuss during our Baltic meetings and also the informal network of EU independent institutions is very beneficial, and as well I do not see the need, the necessity for further work from European Commission.
Yes, comprehensive answers. But yes, it's important for, like in Finland, we are under the audit office where we really don't discuss about fiscal policy, only us 3. So it's really important to discuss about these things and issues involved, because in other countries, like in Estonia, those secretaries that you have work in the central bank. They are involved in discussions, and in Finland we lack the independent council in that sense, that we are only the secretaries that work, but we have no professional or academic council that that could give some new reasoning to our discussion. And this is why we need better connections, and the connections are really important for us.
Lūdzu, vēl kādi jautājumi?
Other questions, please?
Moment that DG ECFIN has also been trying to be of help to this whole community of independent fiscal institutions by trying to explain how we apply Stability and Growth Pact and all kinds of things that are attached to it. So we are trying to do our best there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Nils.
I have a question to Andžs. Actually, I'm just thinking, I'm not sure. Who is making endorsement of macroeconomic projections in your case? Because they are produced by Ministry of Finance, so you said explicitly that it's not your task. Who actually endorses it?
The Ministry of Finance does the macroeconomic forecast, and Fiscal Council gives its comment whether we think it's a realistic one, if we think that let's say, taxation or tax collection is overestimated. We can comment on that, but we don't go into details by saying that whether there should be more income tax collected or less expenditures there. We say whether we think that the risks that are described, for example, in the macroeconomic forecast are realistic, whether we believe in them. We try to do a little bit of our analysis together with the central bank by looking at disaggregated demand models and things like that. But we don't have, how to say, legal document which would say that we endorse it or we don't endorse. We provide our opinion on that. And again, it's up to the government, the Ministry of Finance, whether they ignore it or they say, yes, your comments are correct, we try to take them into account.
All right. I somehow get an impression that we are running out of questions unless there's remarks.
Thanks. I would like to ask a question from Jānis that about this commenting or opinion on forecast. Because in Latvia you are endorsing the forecast. Does it make any difference because you are following the forecasts of the Ministry of Finance? Do you want it to be endorsed that the independent authorities has checked the forecast? Does it make any difference for you?
Okay, maybe I will try to respond. Okay. Even if the fiscal discipline law does not require the Council to endorse Ministry of Finance macroeconomic projections, the Ministry of Finance and the Council agreed this year in February, in January, that the Fiscal Council will assume this responsibility in line with two-pack of EU rules, because otherwise we did not have really a formal endorsement procedure. Certainly it would be a good question to the Ministry of Finance to understand if they are happy with the change. We had one attempt of doing this. This happened in February. For macro framework for the stability program, and now in June we are going to repeat this again for the second time. So this is not based on the legal requirements, this is based on agreement between the Council and the Ministry of Finance. At this moment, I think Nils will have to add here.
The question, are we happy or not? So we are we love rules and we love to comply with them. And Brussels saying that if the ministry producing the macroeconomic forecast, we should avoid the risk that then it will be presented to Minister of Finance, and Minister of Finance say, oh, it's too pessimistic. So think again. So, and the civil servant think again and get. That's why if we produce, then we should have a legal endorsement, and it's really the part of the TUPAC. And up till now, it was done by our national bank jointly with the Ministry of Economy. Okay, Ministry of Economy is part of the government anyway, but national bank is independent. But then the question came that then after sometimes they come with their own macroeconomic projection and they say, oh, what the Ministry of Finance is doing, that's wrong. So, and then just to safeguard the freedom of national bank to provide their very independent opinion of what the Ministry of Finance is doing, so the best way is to entrust it to Fiscal Council. So that was our decision. And that's true, that was not the decision at the moment when we prepared the fiscal discipline law. That's why it's not part of the fiscal discipline law, but this is agreed and it is fixed on the memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Finance and the Fiscal Council. But the very idea of having endorsement, that comes from the legal obligation for the euro area countries.
Jans Hermans, you want to comment on the issue of whether you think it's right for Council to give its endorsement for
Es domāju, šobrīd tas formāts ir tāds, ka...
Yeah, at the moment, ministries come up with this forecast, then the Bank of Latvia, as an independent expert, endorses it or authorizes it. I actually don't know whether it's good or not, or it can be changed. It's okay.
Any final questions, remarks?
I do have a question. Last year, from Latvia, emigrated more people than on previous years. And can you, as members of Fiscal Discipline Council, predict whether this flows of emigration is directly dependent on budget deficit? Especially, I would like to know what Estonians think about it, as they have as they don't have budget deficit. Are there inhabitants leaving the country as well?
I would give my vote to that one. I think in the case of Estonia, there is a bit of a specific case because of the closeness with Helsinki and Finland. There's just 80 kilometers between us, and there are tens of thousands of people basically weekly commuting to work in Finland, but being former residents of Estonia. And this has created actually quite a lot of discussion about our economic growth potential, how these tens of thousands of workers should be taken into account. So there is actually influence to the debate about structural fiscal balance related to labor market. But whether fiscal deficit versus fiscal surplus alone will make more people to stay in your country, probably not. I think there are so many more issues around it, why people leave, why they want to use the possibility of free movement of capital, free movement of labor. And again, where I think the situation of Estonia is somewhat different, for example, from Latvia and Lithuania, is that in our case, lots of people left in the early 90s to Finland because of language proximity, because of geographical proximity. So in 2004 to 2008, when Latvia and Lithuania saw a lot of people leaving, we didn't have that flow then as dramatic anymore. And as a consequence, we also don't have today so much movement back and forth anymore, that I would say those large movements have taken place. And I think last year we actually had net inflow of people, because Finland is third year in a recession, so a lot of Estonians who were working and constructions in Finland and so on are coming back. So I think that has much bigger impact on our labor movement compared to whether we have a surplus budget or a deficit budget.
As to this correlation between fiscal policy and emigration, during the crisis time, it was a valid argument that we had limited resources and direct impact on outflow of people, and that was at least one of the reasons why people left. Today, it's not a valid point. There are other reasons influencing this factor, and as far as there have been research on this phenomenon, that during crisis people emigrated because they had no work, they were unemployed, they received little salaries. Today, people leave Latvia if they don't have a clear vision as to their future and as to the future of the country as such. I already mentioned that this will be the last question, so I would like to offer to close the question and answer session.
And I'm listening to the discussion. I was watching these charts over and over, and then that one alerting chart, for at least for us or as a council, was that there is one pie which shows how many people actually is aware of fiscal council existing and doing their job, and it's quite a small proportion. On one hand, that could be something we would love to increase, the awareness of society, but on the other hand, listening to Estonian and Finnish example, maybe it's very good that you don't have to make any noise and don't have to become popular. So maybe it's also a good sign. So, but we can continue on this discussion maybe in a few years from now. And with this, I will ask for a round of applause for our discussions. And we'll pass the floor over to Jānis for concluding remarks.
Thank you very much for your activity, for your interest in those very important issues connected with fiscal discipline and the first 3 years of fiscal discipline law. This was very valuable. We touched upon very important issues, very topical issues. I want to thank Niels for his systematic analysis as to his forecast for amendments of fiscal discipline law. Although I don't think that some of his priorities are not my priorities. For example, budget deficit for municipalities is not that important, according to me. Current system asks for certain procedures and strict rules for municipalities for taking a loan, for borrowing money, and that doesn't allow municipalities to overspend. There are more, the problem lies within Ministry of Finance as to forecasting how much municipalities will borrow. And we have to limit ungrounded borrowing loans from the municipalities. But I totally agree that this fiscal management system is a big home task, and we have to think about how to make it more efficient and how to explain, let's say, to the politicians, to the government as such, as to what importance fiscal reserve has. I want to agree to what you've said, that midterm budget planning is an important task for the future, because midterm budget framework is according to me, has become a bookkeeping document, and register is very scrupulously looked at. For example, base expenditures, and this midterm review is actually very little used so far in order for the government to explain and to forecast for the next 4 years. Thank you, not only to Nils, but to all the speakers, including Mārtiņš Bitāns from the Bank of Latvia. These discussions with Nils were very interesting, although I doubt that people could follow what you've said when trying to explain it in plain language. I think that the construction of fiscal discipline law says that we are observing the most strict rule, either one or the other is as a concept correct and good. But I agree to Nils and to Mārtiņš when they were saying that we should do more in order to come up with the right calculation, the right method of the calculation. And maybe at the moment the Council is in a comfortable situation. We are not coming up with our own calculations. We look and criticize and the calculations of the Ministry of Finance. We come up with suggestions, but together with the Bank of Latvia, we might do even a better job. And we should involve the Bank of Latvia in our working groups in order for those issues to be tackled and analyzed. I believe that very interesting were the presentations from the other Baltic countries and from Finland as to their experience, and all the contacts and all network that we have has helped us to develop and think how to improve our situation. Thank you to colleagues Māris Zanders and Jānis Hermanis for their words, encouraging words, as well as questions that we have to think about in a very important way, whether we have to inform our people about things that they are not interested in. So to be or not to be, but we have to understand that people want to have money today and reform or restructure later. And it will always be the issue of what benefits I'll get in the future if I get something today, if I give something today. Speaking about the law as such, some articles are very difficult to read for the broader, especially for the broader society, and we have to do our share of explanation. We have to explain, first of all, to journalists, and if journalists will be able to understand them, then the society as such will benefit and will probably finally gradually understand them. As to state public debt, it is included in the law, in our declaration, but from the point of view of the government, it is not an issue of constant work. It's something that is that we are concerned only at the end. And now speaking about the Fiscal Discipline Council as such, are we firefighters who are currently sleeping because there are no fires to extinguish, or whether there will be some members of our council who will be fainting whenever someone from the society is going to try and explain what's currently going on. So those are the issues that we have to tackle, and we'll still have to find our place within the current situation. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your interesting thoughts and opinions. Let's not consider that our cooperation is finalized today, that no, we have our Twitter account, email, we have our webpage. Please do contact us. We will try to answer to all your calls, suggestions, as well as your invitations for cooperation. So, thank you very much. And I want to remind you that the initiator of this event came from European Commission representation in Latvia, and they are also the sponsors of this event. They helped and financed research or a survey that you saw on a slideshow during the break and during discussions. Thanks to the representation of European Commission and everyone who helped to organize this event. Thank you very much.